the next episode of Out from the Shadows, Let's Talk Migraine. And today we're going to be talking about depression and anxiety. This is a really hot topic because so many people who live with migraine disease also have to deal with depression and anxiety. And there are a few reasons for that, and we're going to be talking about that in a moment. Obviously, we all have our little secrets, and my biggest one is probably that I also struggle with depression and anxiety. And up until recently, I have really just not talked about it. And there are many reasons for that. I don't like to talk to my doctors. I feel like many doctors have a tendency to blame depression and anxiety or anything they don't necessarily understand on stress. So resolve your stress and everything else will go away, or just to throw more medications at you without actually trying to work through all the details that we need worked through. So I don't really tend to talk to my doctors about it. I haven't talked much to my friends about it because honestly, if you don't have chronic pain, it's really hard to get the impact of chronic pain, and it's hard to get the impact of taking all the medications that we have to take. I don't talk to my family much about it either, probably because I'm too busy feeling that I am a burden to them, or feeling guilty because of the things that I simply just can't do. And when I was able to work, I certainly didn't talk about anything with my employer or my acquaintances at work. It was more, I'm fine. I'm not going to talk about what I'm dealing with. I'm just going to put a face on it, and I'm just going to push through. But there are some times when it is simply unavoidable to face. And I'm sure that you have those breaking points for yourself. But my breaking point is really day 3 of a bad migraine attack. I recently wrote an article on migraine.com called When the Rubber Meets the Road, Day 3 of a Migraine. And I talked about it in that article. If you haven't read that, go to migraine.com and look at my profile and just read what I had to say there, because hopefully it will be helpful to you. And there are a lot of great articles on migraine.com in general. So on day 3 of a migraine, I've basically worked through, okay, this is not going to stop quickly, to what am I going to do next, to, oh my goodness, I can't stop this one. And depression sets in and anxiety sets in because I realize that I've also probably maxed out my acute medication, or I'm already getting nasty side effects from the acute medication. So whether it's the fact that the migraine has now become intractable, or whether it's the medications that I'm taking to try to treat the migraine, or whether it's just the fact that it's depressing having exploding pain in your head that doesn't stop, or maybe it's all 3 of those, day 3 and going on is really a crunch time for me, and that's hard. The thoughts that start going around my head are, oh, here we go again. Will this be the time that my acute medication finally caused serious or irrevocable damage? How on earth am I going to stop this one? How am I going to reschedule everything that I planned on doing in this time? And of course, well, there goes my diet and health plan out the window, because there's no way that I can keep that going while I feel like this. And that's really, really hard. It's those bad migraine attacks for me that really max me out and push me into that deep hole. But for you, it may be different. Maybe you struggle with this all the time. Maybe you have to deal with this immediately before a migraine, and for you, it's part of the prodrome. Maybe for you, it is after a migraine attack, which is part of the postdrome. Maybe you're one of those lucky ones who doesn't struggle with depression and anxiety at all, and that's fabulous. But for those of you who do, so often we feel like we are in a black hole and we can't get out of it. And the tendency when we're in that black hole is to stay there, is to isolate, is to hide, and that doesn't help it. It's really hard. It's so great if we could just get back a little control over our lives. And the good news is that we can get back some of the control over our lives. So we're going to be talking about that towards the end, where we talk about a toolbox. All of it sounds honestly pretty depressing. I got to be honest, when I start talking about day 3 of a migraine or my acute medication causing serious side effects, I get depressed. I get anxious just thinking about that. If any of you are going through that right now, I know that you also are likely to deal with that. And I see some of your comments that are saying that you're going through a similar thing. How are you going to keep on going? How are you going to face tomorrow? And quite honestly, it is hard to deal with it. But the truth is that there is hope and there are things that you can do. So I'm going to go through several of them. The first one is take a breath. Just taking a big breath is so simple, but amazingly enough, it is really powerful. And I would really just encourage you to do it. It's easy for what I call the committee in your head to keep on going around and round and round with its thoughts and not to stop. But when we stop and take a breath, it actually really helps. Just knowing that you've survived this before and you're going to survive it again. Those are really important things. And all those thoughts have space to come out when you stop and you take a breath. Here's a second idea. Listen to music. I personally love music. Now, maybe you don't. And if that's the case, then you can just ignore this tip. But if you do love music, then find something that is inspirational or meditative or calming, whatever that means to you. There's some really, really great music out there that can help you manage the pain and the anxiety and the depression that you are going through. So one of my favorite songs, to be quite honest, is by Jason Mraz, and it's called I Won't Give Up. If you have never listened to that song, then just try listening to it, listen to the words. And for me personally, it's just very, very powerful. Number 3, try positive self-talk. So the committee in our head tends to say all sorts of negative things. You're not going to make it through. This is going to be a really bad one. This is the end of your life. There's no point going on. The medications you're taking are going to cause a lot of damage. Your life is falling apart and all sorts of other negative things. The list can go on and on. So we can replace those thoughts in our head with positive self-talk. So positive self-talk would be things like, I'm strong. I can make it through this. I am courageous and I am brave. I am not going to give up. I have got through this before and I am going to get through it again. And I'm just going to tell you, if you've got a really bad migraine right now, you are going to get through this and you are stronger than you know. Try telling yourself that. Number 4, reach out to a friend. So some of you may not have somebody who you can call or you can text or you can meet with who actually really gets what it is like to have migraine and chronic pain. And when you're dealing with depression and anxiety on top of that, that makes it all the worse. I would really encourage you to try to find someone. That may sound impossible to you. To be quite honest, up until a year ago, I thought that was totally impossible myself. And then I discovered this amazing online community. This online community is powerful. It is supportive and it is there for you. So connect with someone. Don't be afraid to ask someone who you've been chatting with for a while, hey, can we just text? Can we connect? I need someone to talk to. A really great opportunity for that, to be quite honest, is Retreat Migraine. So if any of you were to Retreat Migraine last April, it was an incredible 2.5-day event that was led by people with migraine for people with migraine. For those of you who went there, I know that you made some really great connections. I met so many people who I knew just online at this conference. So the next Retreat Migraine is going to be April 2020, and we're going to be releasing information about that shortly. You're going to be able to register, and I really hope that you consider coming. It is just an incredible way to connect and to make friends. Number 5, ask for help. I know it's really hard to ask for help. I don't like asking for help. Again, I'm so busy feeling guilty about the things I can't do and feeling guilty about being a burden. But the truth of the matter is that it is okay. It is important for you to ask for the help that you need. Now, that may just mean, telling your spouse or your significant other, your children, a friend, could you please make sure I always have water by my bed because I can't get out of bed, or I need my home to be kept quiet, or could you please do the laundry, do the cooking? You don't want to get up after a bad migraine attack and discover that your sink is full of dishes and the laundry is just not done. So don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay. This is not your fault. One of my friends said very wisely, migraine disease is a no guilt, no fault disease. It's not your fault you have migraine. And you should not feel guilty about the things you can't do. So just remember that. Number 6, talk to your doctor about what is safe to take and what would be helpful for you. So some people really do need to be on medication for depression and anxiety, and that's okay. Talk to your doctor. If the first thing you try doesn't help, maybe he would recommend something else. Maybe it would be good for you to go see a counselor, a therapist, and talk about pain management. There are some really great techniques that you can learn in therapy. But besides all that, when you're in the middle of an attack, it's really hard to figure out what you can take for pain and what you can't take for pain. So when we're in the middle of a lot of pain, the depression setting in, the anxiety setting in, we are not thinking straight. That is not the time to start wondering, is it okay for me to take this medication? Is it okay for me to add that medication in? Can I take it this frequently? Talk to your doctor ahead of time, have a plan, write it down if you need to, and make sure that it is accessible. So when you have a really bad attack, you know what you can take, when you can take it, and you don't need to add to your anxiety about that. That is so, so important. Number 7, be kind to yourself. So I talk about this a lot in my posts and in my comments on Facebook. And being kind to yourself can mean different things to each of us. Obviously, to me, it means watching romantic movies or period movies from England. I really love those, no surprise there. Or reading a book. It could mean taking a bath with candlelight or reading a book in the bath. It could mean just eating a favorite food that you don't normally eat because it doesn't really fit in with your diet, but it somehow calms you. That's okay on occasion to do that. Whatever it means to be kind to yourself, be kind to yourself. Take a scenic walk, hopefully on a day it's not too hot, not too windy, not too humid, not too cold, not too rainy, anything that triggers your migraines. Avoid that. When you're able to get out, get out. Just look up at the sky, take a breath and breathe. So really just be kind to yourself. Be gentle on your body. Give it the rest that it needs. I know that that's hard. Again, we're dealing with guilt. We're dealing with a sense of being a burden. But the reality is that your body needs to rest, not because you're lazy and not because you are weak. You are strong, but your body is fighting a disease that there is no cure for right now. And if you do not rest, it makes it so much harder to fight that disease, and it amplifies depression and anxiety because more exhaustion sets in. So please make sure that you get the rest you need. Now, part of that means saying no. 2 little letters, N-O. Most of us do not like to use them. I do not like to use them, but it is so important to learn to say no. No, I can't do that. Or no, I'm not sure I can do that. Or I know I committed to this, but no, I can no longer do it. And it's okay to say that. Number 9, know that it's not just you. You are not crazy. The thoughts going through your head are not crazy. This is not abnormal. There is a lot of us who actually deal with the same thing. Sometimes just knowing that you are not alone, that you are not the only one. Oh my goodness, I'm not the only one who's dealing with this. That is powerful. And so I'm telling you right now, you are not the only one, and you are not crazy at all. This is a really rough disease. Number 10, have tools in your toolbox. So that's kind of an interesting concept. For those of you who are familiar with it, just bear with me for a minute. But for those of you who are not, just picture in your mind a plumber who gets called out to a house because there are problems. And if he doesn't have his toolbox with him, then what is going to happen when he tries to fix a leaky tap or stop a flood, unclog a toilet, replace a pipe, or do anything else that he needs to do? If he doesn't have his tools in his toolbox, then he's basically useless. And that's really the image that I want you to have. Not that you're useless, but that I want you to feel empowered in learning to deal with not only the pain, but the depression and the anxiety that we deal with so often. And by having a toolbox, that is going to help you. Now, that toolbox could look different for all of us. So I'm going to give you some ideas, but now it's going to be up to you to sit down and think, well, which of these ideas work for me? Or which other ones work for me? If it's a good idea for you, then sit and write down, make your list, put it up on your wall, put it on your fridge, anything that helps you remember that these are tools that are going to help you face tomorrow. These are really, really crucial tools. So I'm going to give you a list of 12. Meditation and breathing, so important. A lot of us feel like meditation is a waste of time because we spend so much time in bed, not able to do anything. And when we feel well enough to get out of bed, we certainly don't want to spend a few minutes sitting, doing nothing, breathing. That's the way I feel, at least, and I clearly admit it. But I also know that when I do meditation, it makes a huge difference. I use an app called Unwinding Anxiety, which I find extremely helpful. I also use Headscape. I know that a lot of people use Calm. Whichever one works for you, give it a try. Maybe there are other ones that also work for you. But whatever you do, consider trying meditation and breathing, even if it's just 1 or 2 minutes each day. Just start small. It's okay. You don't have to start big. Just start with something easy. Number 2, we already talked about this, positive self-talk. Number 3, calming, inspirational music. Number 4, connecting with a friend. Number 5, taking a scenic walk. Number 6, stretching. We didn't talk about that, but stretching helps relieve the tension in your body, which in turn can help reduce anxiety. Number 7, a candlelit bath or just a bath. I recommend that if you are a mom with young kids, shut the door, make sure that your spouse is watching your children, lock the door, no interruptions, and just relax. Number 8, reading a book, either an actual physical book or read a book online. Number 9, watch calming movies on TV. Whatever that means to you, I would probably recommend you don't watch ones of guns shooting and loud noises and flashing lights, but if that is what calms you down, that's great. Whatever helps you calm or just distracts you from the pain also is going to lower your anxiety and your depression too. Number 10, eat your favorite food. So one of the things that I tend to eat when I have a severe migraine attack, I can't say it's my favorite food, but I always crave it. It's just burnt toast. It is definitely not on my diet plan, but when I'm in a lot of pain and when I'm sick to my stomach, that is what I eat, and I give myself permission to eat it. So when we don't give ourselves permission to do something, what happens is that we get more anxious and often we get more depressed. So give yourself permission to do things like that. It's really okay. Number 11, doing games or puzzles. So that could be games on your phone. It could be a jigsaw puzzle. It could be doing a crossword puzzle or Sudoku in the newspaper. Again, these things are calming and they can really help reduce your anxiety just because you are focusing on something other than your pain. Number 12, adult coloring or other art therapy is very, very powerful. I remember the first time someone said to me, why don't you try drawing or painting the image that you have of yourself when you're in pain, or an image of hope? And I thought, well, I can't do that. I can't even draw a stick figure that looks like a figure. How can I possibly do this? And yet it was amazing because I was able to put something down on paper that expressed how I felt, and that was powerful. Another thing that I recently learned this past month, thanks to a great friend of mine, is something called Zentangle. So Zentangle is a very meditative art. I'm not going to go into it here. We may make some posts about it in the Migraine Meanderings Facebook group. But if you do a Google search for Zentangle, then you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a slow artwork that is very detailed. You tend to just use a black pen. And I know that when I do it, it really calms me down. It lowers my heart rate and I start to relax. So how do you deal with depression and anxiety in your life? Do you struggle with depression and anxiety? If you do you ever talk to anyone about it? Is this something that is easy for you to talk about, or is it something like me that you just have a tendency to hide because it's really difficult, or maybe you feel ashamed that you're dealing with it? Do you find it easy or hard to use positive self-talk? So what is the most helpful thing that you say to yourself? What is the most helpful thing that you say to yourself? Do you have a friend or friends who you can reach out to? I'm very fortunate because in the past year, I've made several friends who live in different time zones who I'm able to text, or I'm able to call, I'm able to message on Facebook. When I'm in a lot of pain, or like day 3 is when I tend to contact them, or if I've been down for a long time, like after my recent trip to Europe, I was sick for a month and I didn't want to reach out to anybody, but people were reaching out to me, and I so appreciate that, because when I finally connected and talked to them, it made such a huge difference just to have that real life connection, to have someone say, I get it, it's not fair, I'm here for you and you are strong and you can make it through. Or another time I frequently contact friends is when I have a bad doctor's experience. So I have something called white coat syndrome. I didn't know it actually had a name. I'm sure it's not a medical name, and maybe a lot of you have it too. It basically means every single time I go to see a doctor, I get really, really anxious. I've had some great experiences, but honestly, I've also had some really bad experiences. I know for a fact that my blood pressure goes up really high because I test my blood pressure at home before I go, and then my doctor tests it in the office, and it is like two completely different people. So that is a stressful time for me. If it's gone really badly, then I tend to call a friend and say, hey, this happened. What do you think? Am I really crazy? And just kind of talk it through with someone. That lowers my anxiety. It lowers my stress and my sense of depression and hopelessness as well. So do you have that person? Do you have a pain relief plan in place? Do you have a toolbox for things that you can use when psychologically and emotionally you're just in a bad place? If you haven't, I really encourage you to sit down and make out a toolbox, to try to connect with people, to stay connected on this community online. And most of all, just to know that you are not alone. This is a huge fight for so many of us. It still is amazing to me. There are 40 million people in America alone, 1 billion globally, who live with migraine. We live with chronic pain, and it takes so much from our lives, and yet there is so little known about it. But the good news about that is that you are not alone, that there are many, many others who get it, that we are here for you, that we can tell you when you are feeling weak, that you are strong. When you are feeling hopeless, that there is hope. And that's the message I want to leave with you today, that there is hope. There is a lot of new things coming out on the horizon. There is a lot of support. The voice of the migraine community is starting to get louder, asking for more research, asking for more doctors' training to have, to understand how to treat headache disorders such as migraine. So there is hope. Do not give up. If you ever feel like you are about to give up, reach out to someone. Do not be afraid. There is no shame. There is no guilt. There is no blame. This community is here for you. So I hope that you have learned something from this. As I said earlier, I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. So I'm just talking from the patient perspective, because I think it really helps us to see for real that there is someone else who gets where we're at, and to see that there are patients who are willing to speak up and to be honest about what it is like to live with this disease. I encourage you to speak up as well. I encourage you to reach out. But most of all, just hold on to hope. Don't give up. You are not alone, and we're going to make it through this. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm going to be in Scottsdale at the American Headache Society Symposium, and I hope to be doing it with a friend there. It's going to be a surprise who I do this with, but please join us. It's in the middle of November, and I look forward to seeing you there. Take care.